Welcome to the Courage to Be podcast. I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. Today, I want to share with you the practices keeping me sane in this limbo space of this being in the not quite here, not quite there yet, And so I think it's very important to talk about how do we ground ourselves when we're going through big transitions in our life, whether that's the loss of someone, whether that's a big move, whether that's, just going through a divorce, whatever it is that you're going through, whether it's something big, especially for the things that are big, or even things that are a little bit smaller. But when we're going through change, you want to create rituals and practices that are going to ground you. And some of the ones that I've used, and I'm just sharing with you, try whatever ones you want, try them on, see what works, see what doesn't. Also be a little bit flexible, like the majority of these practices I've done throughout my life. Sometimes I've done ones and not the others. Other times I've done just a little bit of time because I couldn't do more time with it. But the things that have been carrying me through in this time, one is going out in nature and just connecting with nature, whether it's a hike, whether it's a walk down near the river, or just even sitting outdoors and listening to the birds. Another one is finding those moments of silence, just throughout our day. I feel like we're so bombarded with information. And in my case right now, in this big transition with so many decisions, that the brain is going into overdrive. And so my invitation is to find pockets of silence, of quietness, like where you can just be, you can, whether it's driving in the car, or the hikes work really well because it's like an hour or something that I'm just walking in silence, and not talking. And that helps me so much to regroup with myself. Another practice is journaling, or what Julia Cameron calls morning pages. And I started doing these in the 90s when I read The Artist Way. If you haven't read that book, I highly suggest you do. And one of her biggest practices is doing morning pages, which is as soon as you wake up and you sit down and you dedicate around half an hour or at least 3 pages of free flow thinking, where it's uncensored, you're not going back to edit it. And what happens is that you start peeling the onion, like the outer layers, the first initial part of writing might be just mundane things, like, oh, I have to take my daughter to school today. Oh, my husband was rude to me, or this other person said this thing to me and I didn't like it. And then, so you're just kind of venting, you're just letting go of that initial layer of nonsense, of mind chatter. But then as you keep practicing this, it might even be in that same sitting, you might start going deeper and ideas start coming to you because you are connecting with your intuition. You are connecting with your higher self. And so you're starting to transmit, and download information from higher up, from the invisible world. Ideas start coming to you, at least to me it does. And I usually put an asterisk on my journal, and then I put a table of contents, like what page, what idea, so I can go back to it. And so I really invite you to think about what other practices can help you throughout your big transitions. Oh, another great one too is trying to stay as healthy as you can. Remember that your body needs to stay strong, needs to stay vital. You need that vitality, that energy. And so does your brain. So you really want to take care of your physicality, your physical, this vessel that's carrying you through. But because the brain is using so much power and making decisions and having to make the right decisions, you do want to feed your body as best as you can. Because I'm not saying that I haven't reverted to junk food. I wish I could just be that person. But if I do, it's just like one day a week, a cheat day, and paying attention and having awareness if I'm going into just soothing myself with food, like how am I soothing myself with maybe a stressful moment in the day. And so I try and eat as healthy as possible, and feed myself brain foods, like blueberries, nuts and seeds, any type of dark chocolate is also good, any type of olive oil, avocados, greens. So you want to give your brain what it's going to get its fuel from, so that you can make better decisions, so you can respond better. I'm also on top of my supplements too, and especially for me going and being in perimenopause, because I do want to support my body and my mind, my brain with all of this transition. And then obviously exercising, moving the body. And I don't care what that looks like. For me in perimenopause, it's very important to do strength training. I used to say that it's so boring, and I stopped saying that to myself. Now I look forward to like strengthening my arms, my legs, and that depending on what day I'm going into the gym. But just move your body. Like if you do not enjoy strength training, just move your body. Go for a hike, go for a run, go for a swim, dance, whatever it is, but at least get 30 minutes of movement, like for a walk. That's very simple. You can go for a walk and look, you're doing two things at once. Go for a silent walk and you'll be able to do two things at the same time. You're doing your meditation, you're doing your quietness, and you're moving your body. So think of batching it in that way too, of how can I get myself strong and ground myself in these times. And yeah, any other things? Let me try and think if there's any other rituals that I have going on with this. Those I'd say are the main ones. And sometimes I transition. Sometimes I do better in some and I do less of others. But I really want you to start thinking about these transitions as a way to create sacred spaces in them too, because our transition has been 6 months long. And if you can't find that groundedness and those rituals and those practices, it's very easy to let yourself go, to start eating junk food, to not move, or at least that could have been for me. It's like I could have easily gone down that path. And then you're more stressed, then you're more reactive to things. Another thing that I've also been very cautious and very aware is how much input I allow into my head, and especially of news, because that'll throw me off kilter too. So anyway, just keep in mind that transitions are sacred. They're sacred spaces too. It's not always like the destination and how you want to move through that space. And I'll leave you with a question for you, like what anchors do you use when everything feels uncertain or when you're in this space of transition? Until our next episode, remember to always choose courage over comfort. And I am your host, Tanya Vasallo. I will see you at our next episode. If you loved today's episode, it would mean so much if you rate and review The Courage to Be on Apple Podcast. Not only does it help the show to grow, but it also gets you in the running for something amazing. Every month, I draw one lucky winner to receive a complimentary 7-night, 8-day vacation. You'll get to pick from over 3,000 beautiful resorts worldwide. You just cover the taxes and fees like you would with a travel rewards. Airfare is not included. And if you want to double your chances, along with your Apple Podcast review, leave a couple of comments on YouTube. That counts as a second entry. Just send your screenshots to help.thecouragetobe@gmail.com and you'll find the email in the show notes too. It only takes a moment, and who knows, your next adventure might be closer than you think. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on our next episode of the Courage to Be podcast.